So I'm continuing my quarterback rankings for top 40 quarterbacks right now, and for number 15 on this list, I have someone that a lot of people probably wouldn't have this high, but I think he's well deserving of a top 15 spot, and that's Derek Carr. I think part of the reason that he's kind of gotten a lot of heat over the years actually had to do with just one game in particular. It was that first Monday Night Football game where he didn't play too well, and that kind of gives people a negative impression of you. I think a large part of the reason why Andy Dalton gets so much hate is simply because he tends to not perform too well in prime time, but he will perform well just in regular season games. You know, games that maybe aren't necessarily in prime time. And in fact, you could throw Kirk Cousins in as one of those guys who I am going to have higher up on this list as well. But I think this notion that is Derek Carr gone and should the Raiders look to move on from him is one of the dumbest narratives that's currently going on in sports right now. With all the draft picks they had last year, they didn't even draft a single quarterback, and they made some serious improvements to bolster that offensive side of football. I mean, this went from being one of the worst offensive supporting casts to one of the best offensive supporting casts, and let's just jump into Derek Carr, and the first couple plays I want to break down are actually from that Monday Night Football game, and let's talk about what went wrong. Like on this one, the first thing you'll notice is that there's a single safety deep, and if there's a single safety deep in this situation, there's a good chance that it is going to be man coverage, and it is going to be a cover one hole, or cover one blitz, or cover one robber, or something like that. It doesn't really matter exactly which play, because really what's going to be key here is going to be Jared Cook right there in the top half of the screen, and oh yeah, that's the other way you know it's going to be man coverage, because there's a linebacker who's been moved out to the top half of the screen, so of course it's going to be man coverage if there's a linebacker outside of the middle of the field. And since Cook is going to be running a go route here, I mean, Carr likes his odds here of throwing it to Cook, who has a size advantage and should have a speed advantage since he's a tight end against a linebacker. And so what's he going to do at first? Well, one thing you'll notice that Carr does incredibly well is his ability to look off and look in different directions to try to fool safeties and fool linebackers. He's so good at this. He's such a good technical football player, and if you see, that's what he's doing right now, so the safety deep has no idea where this ball could be thrown. But Carr isn't even thinking about throwing it to the bottom half of the screen. There's one guy he's thinking of throwing it to, and that's going to be Cook, who's up at the top half of the screen. And Cook does have decent leverage, so Carr is going to take this shot. He makes an okay throw. It's a bit low, and Cook just isn't able to win his one-on-one matchup, so I think two people deserve blame on that one. I do think Carr's throw should have been a little bit higher. I don't think it was terrible, but I think it should have been a little bit higher, but also Cook has to get his head turned around quicker and has to be able to try to fight for that ball. But it was also just a great play, too. You know, I mean, that's going to happen sometimes as well. Sometimes your opposing team is going to have a great player make a great play. That's what happened there. That one's a forgivable mistake, and in fact, I wouldn't even call it a mistake. I think Carr should have taken the shot there up to the top half of the screen. It didn't work out. The throw could have been a little bit better. Cook could have done his job a little bit better, and you kind of got beat by just a great play. All three things, you know, if just one of those things didn't happen, it wouldn't have been an interception, but since all three did, that's what led to the interception. But I wouldn't blame Carr too much for that one, and I actually think that's kind of more of a positive than a negative of Carr, if anything. However, that was not the only interception of that game. There was also this one, where it's going to be a cover 3 zone, and to have a receiver running an out route right there to the bottom half of the screen, so that's going to be where Carr is going to look to throw to. And as you see right before this play develops, his receiver does have a chance of getting open here. One thing I actually would say is I don't love this route right now. It seems pretty obvious that he is going to be cutting to the bottom half of the screen, but Carr is going to try to take a shot there anyways, which could make some sense. I mean, at this point, you are down 10 with 8.5 minutes left, so you maybe do have to take a little bit of chances. You pretty much have to score on this drive. However, this is not really a chance he should take, mostly because of that Rams player right there, who despite the fact that he's in charge of covering the flat on the bottom half of the screen, since there's no Raider in the flat on the bottom half of the screen, he can play pretty far deep. He's going to make a very aware play, take a step back, leap up, and intercept this pass. If memory serves me correctly, this is the one that John Gruden got really on him about, because it's a play that Carr shouldn't make, and honestly, it's a play Carr doesn't make too often. I can kind of see why he thought he could make that play, but clearly that was not the pass to make. He tried to make it anyways, and it came back to bite him. Moving on to his final interception of this game, you're down 13, just over 2 minutes left. I mean, basically it's over. You need an onside kick to actually have a chance to win this game. But, you know, onside kicks still do happen, so I think any competitor would still be trying to win this game, even though it's looking pretty dim at this point. As a fan, you can say, okay, this game's over. But as a player, you should still be saying, hey, we have a chance. Let's try to, get a touchdown, get the onside kick, and then get another touchdown and win. And so what the Raiders are going to do here, and this is actually a pretty good play call, I think. The first thing they're going to do is have those 3 receivers on the top half of the screen all just be running deep towards the left side of the screen. And they'll have Cook block that edge rusher, but then simply run over to the top half of the screen. This is a really good play. I mean, I've definitely seen the San Francisco 49ers run this play with Kittle a few times and got Kittle wide open. And so after this play works out, actually a Ram is going to do a very good job on this play, where as you see, it does look like Cook is pretty open, but there is going to be a Ram who's breaking in and going to try to break up this pass. So for Carr, he's kind of in a tough spot here, where he should still try to hit Cook, but again, you can't really throw it right now because there is going to be an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman who are literally right in front of him, right in the way of Cook, so it kind of has to wait a second before he can make that throw. So he'll have to wait until Cook gets a little bit further up to the top half of the screen, but also it's not going to get as open right here. So Carr makes this throw, and I think Cook just never saw that ram, and honestly it's possible Carr didn't either. Marcus Peters was able to take it all the way for a touchdown, and that was the game clincher. And again, I do have to say that kind of falls into that first category, where Carr does deserve some blame. He didn't make a great throw, and honestly he probably just should have thrown that ball away, because gaining 5 yards in this situation just isn't that big of a deal. Or, seeing if someone else got open or something. But I also felt like Cook could have done a better job of fighting to try to get that ball, and also Marcus Peters just made a good play. Sometimes that happens. But anyways, I do think that's kind of a lot where the narrative came from of Derek Carr can't play, Derek Carr is mediocre and not worth his contract. I think that's silly. I mean, I guess if you want to say he's a mediocre starting level quarterback, I kind of agree. I have him at 15. But in terms of do I think this is a guy that I would want on my roster? Absolutely I would. But anyways, one thing I love about Carr is the way that he seemingly elevates his ability to play in the last 2 minutes of the game. In those clutch situations, there's few guys that I would rather have than Derek Carr, and here's an example of that. They're down 8 here, so they need this touchdown. What's going to happen is Cook is going to be running an out route to the bottom half of the screen, and what they're also going to do is send a half back over right there. In doing that, the hope is that the Brown, who's in charge of covering the bottom half of the screen, who's going to be a lot shallower, will then move in to make sure that he's covering that halfback, and then Cook would have one-on-one coverage. That's the way this play is hopefully going to work for Oakland. And as you see, it's going to work out pretty well. Cook is going to have pretty decent leverage, and he is going to get open here, so Carr has to make a throw. There's no excuses for Carr on this one. This is all on him. He's going to have to make this throw, but it is not an easy throw to make. He's going to have to hit Cook in a perfect spot, and so one way he's going to do that is actually throw a little bit past Cook, so Cook will have to reach his arms out and make the catch. This will now sort of allow for an easier catch. And look at his throw. It's just an absolutely perfect throw. You couldn't ask for anything better than that. But remember, the game's not over. That was only just to make it a 2-point game. They now have to make the 2-point conversion, and I often feel like these plays are more pressure than just the actual getting the touchdown. Like, I remember when the Patriots were just driving on the Falcons over and over again in Super Bowl 51, and then they were down just 8. I remember kind of thinking, well, the Falcons at least have a shot, because all they have to do is stop them on one play on a 2-point conversion. It seemed like there was no way they were going to stop the Patriots 4 times in a row, but maybe they could stop them on just one select play. Granted, they didn't, and we all remember what happened there, but still. But anyways, this play is actually going to be pretty simple for Oakland. Everyone's in the middle of the screen. There's only one guy who's to the outside, and so obviously this now means that it is going to be man coverage, and there is going to be one-on-one coverage on the bottom half of the screen. And so for Oakland, they have a receiver running a fade route, and so they're going to say, hey, let's try it. It's one of those things that with a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of people wouldn't recommend this on a 2-point conversion, just because it's kind of a tough throw to make. Kind of the appeal to doing this in a goal line situation, it's not a very risky play. Assuming the quarterback just doesn't underthrow it, you should be fine. So in a 2-point attempt, especially with a 2-point attempt that you absolutely need to get score on, a lot of people wouldn't do this. However, Oakland trusts Derek Carr. I mean, this isn't just a John Gruden thing. I remember their 2-point conversion against the Saints week 1 of 2017, I believe it was. They were down 1, but they went for 2 and got it. And which play did they run? Well, it was a fade route to Michael Crabtree. Oakland trusts Carr to make these types of plays, and for very good reason. As you see right now, again, there's not really anything you can see right here. This is kind of what you expect would happen just 1 second after the fade route. But if you look at Carr, he doesn't have time to wait around. Unless something disastrous happens on that first move, he's going to be making a throw in that direction, because he has to make that throw quickly so no other Cleveland Brown is able to run over and get in the area and try to make a play. Carr ends up making a perfect throw. I mean, that's exactly what you'd want to have happen there, and that's what led to a tie-it-up 2-point conversion, and eventually led to the Oakland Raiders winning that football game. And a favorable third down spot helped them as well. But hey, those are the breaks sometimes. You gotta take advantage of the situations that have been given to you. And that was not the only clutch situation Derek Carr had found himself in last year. There was also a game at Arizona last year, and this is actually a very big situation right now. You're down by a point with 1 minute and 8 seconds left with no timeouts. So for Oakland, I mean, this is definitely a desperation situation. You need to get in field goal range or it's over. And here's how this play was going to work. It's a cover 2 zone, and they have a receiver running a go route on the bottom half of the screen, which definitely could be a route you might want to take a look at, just because you do have to move the ball downfield quickly. You still do have time where you don't have to work the sidelines, but this is also a good route because potentially he could get out of bounds. You know, it's an option, although that's not really the main selling point. The main selling point is it can get you 20 yards down the field. But of course, since it's cover 2 zone, if you do throw it in that direction, there is a safety who could potentially break over and try to get into the play. So, you know, that's what you have to be afraid of right here. So watch how Carr is going to counteract that. He's going to use his eyes. Look at how he's just only looking up to the top half of the screen, but he doesn't care about the top top half of the screen. That's not where he's intending to look this ball to. He's just trying to get that Arizona Cardinal who's supposed to be guarding the bottom half of the screen closer up to the top half of the screen. And if you see, it is working. That Cardinal is moving up to the top half of the screen. So now while the defensive player who's in charge of covering the flat is going to kind of pass off that receiver, assuming he has help behind him. He actually doesn't have help behind him because of that good play by Carr. He gets easily open. Carr's able to make that, he can make that throw in his sleep. And that's what led to them getting out of bounds and getting almost in field goal range as of right now. That's a game-changing play in a huge spot. And that's kind of what led to them eventually kicking a game-winning field goal for the win. That's probably, in my opinion, that's his biggest selling point. Is in that final drive, there's few guys who I'd rather have than him. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, obviously those two guys, you don't even talk about them. Of course you'd rather have them than Carr. And there's maybe some others, I won't go through each one and say, oh, him, definitely. But in terms of guys that I feel confident about being down 4 with 2 minutes left, 2 timeouts, needing to score a touchdown to win, Carr is definitely on that list. One other thing I like about Carr is everything is just so quick. He has his quick release, which I haven't really talked about too much yet on this video, but his quick release is definitely a real thing, but also just his quick decision making. There's no hesitation with Carr. He figures out what the coverage is, knows what route he wants to throw to, and throws it instantly. It's so quick, it's so seamless. Like on this one, it's a cover 1 hole, and they have a receiver running a go route to the bottom half of the screen, so that's where Carr's going to look to throw the ball to. But again, this is kind of a disguise here, where you can't clearly tell that this is a cover 1 hole. For one thing, look at how far up that chief safety is to the top half of the screen. If this were to be like a cover 2, for example, it would actually be that chief safety who's kind of at the 21-yard line right now, but he's very far in. So Carr knows it's clearly going to be a disguise of one of those two things, but the Kansas City Chiefs are kind of trying to fool him a little bit into not knowing which one it could be. However, really, the strong safety would have to be a little bit farther deep if they're really going to pull this off, because being at the 21-yard line, you're only 4 yards further down the field, you're probably not going to be playing deep if you are that close. Really, I think the mindset has to be here, stay at the 25 and then move a couple of steps in right as the ball is getting snapped. And then you kind of just pray that it's not an out route, essentially. But that is not what that safety is doing. And in fact, he was actually a couple of steps in before taking a couple of steps back. So this now means that essentially the Kansas City Chief, who's at the top half of the screen, should just be further to the bottom half of the screen. That's all that should be going on right now. Because at this point, you're not really going to be fooling Carr, but now he's out of position. And since there is that go out to the bottom half of the screen, this now basically means it's going to be one-on-one coverage guaranteed. And so look how Carr takes advantage of this. As of right now, you can't really tell if his receiver is going to win or if his receiver isn't going to win, but Carr doesn't care. He's going to take a throw in that direction. You're playing the odds, essentially. I do often compare the quarterback position to a basketball player because I think it's very similar in a lot of ways. While yes, getting a dunk is obviously the ideal situation, more often than not, it's not going to happen. But if you see you have a shot that you have a good chance of making, you should probably take that shot, even if it's not a guarantee that you can make it. Just like in this situation, you should try to take this shot, even if it's not a guarantee that it is going to be a catch, because more often than not, it will be a catch. And if you play the odds, basically if this exact situation happened 100 times, and you made this exact throw 100 times, then it would help you more often than hurt you. And it also helps that Carr was able to make a great throw, and his receiver was able to come back to his back shoulder and make the catch. And I know it might not look like a perfect throw, but keep in mind that the Chiefs player had to turn his back to make sure he could keep pace with the Oakland receiver, and then by the time that he did turn back around, it was too late and it was already a catch. One more play, and this is kind of the bread and butter of the Oakland Raiders offense, at least it was last year. It's going to be a lot of protection, as you see, and it's going to be play action. I love the way Oakland used play action last year. They didn't do it as frequently as you'll see a team like the Chiefs or like the Rams do. But when they did use it, it really fooled opposing defenses. But anyways, it's a play action and you send Jared Cook over to the top half of the screen. Something you'll do pretty frequently on play action. Get someone on a crossing route to take advantage of the linebackers who will have had to move in because of the play action. And as you see, this play is going to work out perfectly in a couple of different ways. For one thing, Cook is open, so that's the main way it has to work out. But also, look at Carr and look at that pocket. Look at how clean that pocket is. There is absolutely nobody near him. So while a lot of players would just make this throw right now because, hey, I have a man open, let me just try to hit him. Carr is going to be patient here. He's going to take his time and then make the throw, and that allows him to pick up as many yards as possible. Patience is something that often goes overlooked in a quarterback. Sometimes you have to make that throw in a split second, but sometimes you can wait and make that throw a little bit later because it'll allow you to pick up more yards. You don't necessarily have to make the throw in a split second. You have to make the decision in a split second of when do you want to make the throw. And Carr realized, okay, I can wait a second and then make this throw and we'll be able to pick up more yards. He's just a really aware player. That's one thing that I just love about Carr. And watching his tape, it's one of the most fun tapes to watch because every play he does, he seemingly does the play so well. I couldn't put him any higher, but a large reason for that is just because of how many good quarterbacks there are in this league. But I still have him ahead of guys like Wentz, Foles, and Dak, and Baker Mayfield and several others, just because I think he does a great job of just making every play right. There's no real weakness in his game, and so that's why I have him at the top 15 spot. And so for all those people who say, oh, Derek Carr, he's just mediocre, well, I have him at top 15, so I guess that's one spot above mediocre, so there you go. But also, as we all know, people don't usually refer to mediocre as someone who is just a mediocre starting level quarterback. They refer to mediocre as a mediocre quarterback in general. Brian Hoyer is someone who is actually mediocre. But I digress. I like Derek Carr. He's continuing to improve year after year, and I fully expect him to continue to improve in 2019.